I lost everything at the age of 28. I'd have somebody painting graffiti in my office, and I'm in a tornado.
This is Josh Sirlin, aka the creator of Black Bear brand. He has made jackets for Joe Rogan Andrew Schulz and Orlando Bloom. And today we are talking about how he skydived with Red Bull skydiving team, how he lost everything, and how he made it all back. Welcome to camp. Josh Sirlin, one of the stories I want to start with,
Okay.
Why did you jump out of an airplane in Panama with Red Bull people? Who was it you jumped out of the plane with?
That specific jump, the one that I was telling you about, the one that I had that brutal landing.
Yeah.
The main girl from Italy, that's the Red Bull wingsuiter.
And who are the Red Bull wingsuiters?
So we were all there for a thing called Nitrothon, which Nitrothon was put on by Travis Pastrana, and one of the guys that was one of the main ramp builders at that time for Travis and for Nitro Circus, and he was the one that engineered and designed that ramp. Him and I, because I was invited to Nitrothon, and I was doing like a variety of creative projects for the resort, for like apparel and knick-knack shit.
And you just knew the guy from like back in the day kind of thing?
How Hayes came to me was through the Red Bull projects I was doing for Mastercraft, the boat company. So when Mastercraft would either sponsor or partner with Red Bull, or one of the athletes that was, you know, a Mastercraft athlete as well as a Red Bull athlete, I would be the one that made that Mastercraft boat a Red Bull boat. So that, and then I would do a variety of sea-doos for, I think, surfers, and I think I did a couple skis for a couple pro snowboarders.
That's cool.
So that was kind of my shtick with Red Bull. I loved all of that stuff. I mean, I had never jumped out of a plane, but I wanted to. You know, I mean, I did anything that I could get that feeling that you get when you do those type of things, right? I mean, I skied as much as I can. I had boats.
You like things that require 100% focus.
It's because my focus is one of the most difficult things for me to do is to focus.
I feel like that. That's how I feel on my motorcycle. Like when I sometimes will just kind of be all over the place and I have so many things I'm thinking about and so many things I got to worry about and anxiety, whatever else. But when you're on the bike and you're going down the highway and you're kind of moving through mountains and shit, not only is it like fun and really cool and like exciting, it just requires 100% focus. Same thing with stand-up. It's the same thing. You go on stage and there's just like immediate presence and grounding. You have to be in the moment that you're in. And like jumping out of an airplane is the same way. You can't be thinking about what you have tomorrow. You have to be so present, and the external forces are forcing that presence on you. And it's a really cool thing. And I think that's why I'm drawn to bikes, probably for the similar reason as you are.
Yeah. I mean, skydiving was my first experience because the repercussions are fucking what they are, right? It's like when you are forced to be present is what I fell in love with, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily the skydiving. It wasn't necessarily the community around skydiving that I liked.
But you're weird with the skydiving though, because the first time you jumped out, you didn't have a parachute.
No,
you didn't have an instructor. You did have a parachute, I hope.
Yeah, I've always had a parachute, but no, I just did
have an
static line. So you can speed through. In my experience, I was able to speed through being certified because I had a deadline. So I could jump in Panama.
So this guy hits you up. He's like, yo, come hang out with us. And if you're certified, you can jump. And so you're like...
I was already in Panama, like, and I was there and I couldn't jump. Like, because I'd never jumped out of a plane. And that was part of the shtick. I mean, as soon as I got home, I got certified.
It was like, what, 6 months?
Less.
Wow.
And bad recollection of exact numbers, but it was between 50 and 70 jumps in me being certified, and I did that in a short window.
But you're not using an instructor. You're using what's called a static line, which effectively
first 3 jumps.
Once you get to a certain altitude, it automatically will.
No,
release.
it pulls. I mean, your static line, which I think your minimum is the first 3 jumps. Your cord is in essence pulled as you exit the plane, so you're not free falling worth anything. It's all under canopy work. That you're being kind of gauged for.
Yeah. So you finally get certified, and then you were telling me the story before, which is awesome. You basically finally do the jump in Panama with the Red Bull suitors.
Jumping in a place like Panama, it's like when there's no rules. You don't have to be certified. You don't. It's like when the first parachute they gave me, it didn't have the computer in it. It's like when it's a bit dodgy. It was for somebody much smaller than me. So it's like when, and I still was wanting to jump. I just wasn't going to jump with that parachute. So I waited until I could use Travis's parachute, because in my mindset, it's like going, well, Travis is going to jump in it. His manager and like the packing of the chute is done for Travis. You know, it's like, fuck, that one's dodgy, right? But Travis isn't dodgy.
And Travis gave it to you, or
yeah,
that's
I brought it from him, so I could, and that made me feel real comfortable.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if it's good enough for him, it's probably good enough.
But then we got in this dodgy plane, right? And we've been partying the entire time. But none of these people, they're all at the highest level.
Yeah,
There's like nobody in there. I mean, I was the only hack.
Yeah.
There was one other person that didn't have a wingsuit on.
Who else was the rookie that was with you?
Oh, it wasn't. It was the one girl that's a Red Bull like professional skydiver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So when you say wingsuit,
she just wasn't wearing a wingsuit.
Oh, like literally like the
the squirrel suits. Everyone was wearing squirrel suits.
Oh,
so
hilarious.
It's like, yeah. That's what I mean. So it's like it was all squirrel suit people.
Oh, crazy.
And then me and the girl that often or normally would wear a squirrel suit, but she wasn't.
Just for whatever reason.
Yeah, she didn't feel like it. And she filmed me. I've got videos of her like filming me.
Oh, that's crazy. That's the thing. In Panama, I guess you don't need a license or certification to take off. But you kind of need one to land. You know?
Well, I mean, you should have one no matter what, because that basically means that you've jumped enough time to know what the fuck you're doing.
Right.
Right. But like when you're going through, you're not under any regulations. You're not even with any, but we were in a plane that was a privately owned plane.
Yeah.
Right. That they just call up somebody that knew somebody else. And we had during that week or 4 days, it's like when there was like 3 different planes that flew us around.
Right.
But we were going from racing motocross bikes to racing 4-wheelers to doing jet packs in the water. Like that's what Nitrothon is. It's basically you're just doing a slew of like half jackass, but half like legitimate like things that like we were doing on a motocross or on a supercross track, racing 4-wheelers with 3 people on it.
Oh, that's sick.
Right. While there's consumption happening the entire fucking time.
Yeah, that was your drinking days too.
Yeah, so it's like when nothing broke or stopped. I mean, people were drinking. I mean, most of the guys would have beer in there with them when they jumped.
No, really?
Yeah, they were drinking when they were under canopy.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's
probably against the rules, but if you're in Panama, who cares?
No, there's no rules. I mean, you're going through security as you're going through the airport, and you're just taking out your knife and you're handing the knife to people, and they hand it right back to you.
Wow.
Because everyone's jumping with a knife, right? So you can cut your chute and cut certain things if you're in bad shape.
Oh, crazy.
So it's like, no, everyone's got knives. It's like Travis jumped with no shoes and no shirt. I'm jumping in skate shoes and like cut off shorts and a skate helmet.
Are you saying TSA to get onto the little jumping plane?
Oh no, yeah. There's nobody. It's like it's just all.
Wait, who do you hand your knife to?
You're jumping at an airport. Like when I
so you still go through TSA.
Yeah, it's a small shitty airport in the middle of fucking Panama.
But you still have some type of security. Oh, I didn't realize.
Federales, I think. But it's like that was one of the funnier things. It's like when we're in line to do it at the first airport, I don't know my passport number. I didn't then at least know what my number was on my passport. And that's all we had to do is write down our passport number. And then they passed us through. They didn't have to look at anything. You didn't have to show them ID. It was like, no, literally you could write down it. I was right behind Travis. So I just wrote down and changed a couple of digits. I didn't even know what the list of numbers were. I didn't know how many digits were even in it.
Didn't even check.
It's like when I was just like, all right, change that one and that one.
6 to an 8, 3 to a 7. We're good.
Fuck, all right. And that's fucking it.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's wild. But that was the one jump. After you jumped, the jump was good, but it was the landing that got
yeah. I mean, who cares about the jump? You only give a shit about the landing. Fucking really, right?
Yeah.
But it was just the changing of winds, and when you're a novice or at the level I was, which was whatever level that was, I guess. But it's like when my landing pattern was pretty much set as when I jumped out of the plane. Like I wasn't making many changes to that, because as I start my landing pattern, I'm up fairly high.
Yeah.
Because I'm not fucking very good. I didn't shit the bed in the sense that, my pattern, it's like and I guess that was the common mistake when you're doing that kind of stuff, is that you're going to change direction when you realize you're going the wrong direction. I realized that I had a wind behind me. I needed a headwind. Instead, I had like a crazy backwind that was pushing me, and I was hitting the ground.
And you have a small little pocket you got to land on.
Yeah, I mean gravel too. It's like I was trying to land on gravel because it was my only choice, and I had a backwind that had me like first toe to the ground was, I think I was going like, they were just saying around 30 miles per hour or something.
What?
Yeah, it's fucking fast. I'd like to think I'm fucking fast, but I'm fucking
I mean, this is basically jumping out of a car at 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, but I was at least standing up. It's like so I was standing up with my toes going like a fucking like a cartoon.
It's literally just like, okay, jump out of a pickup truck going 30 and then just start running.
I was running before I touched the ground. It was probably hilarious to watch.
Yeah, you're fucking Fred Flintstone just trying to make it happen.
I was like I was giving it a fucking go.
Yeah, of course. And then you just start tumbling.
Yeah, and then I roll, and then I had a couple more. I think I felt as if I ran a couple more steps amongst my bounces. I think so.
Full front flip, running, full front flip,
you're
running.
Roll, and then you're up on your thing.
Do you have a video of that?
No.
Oh, fuck.
This was so long ago. It was like there's no cell phone cameras.
But you got the video of you jumping, though.
Yeah, but she was wearing a GoPro on her.
Yeah. But everyone else landed okay?
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone's a fucking wizard.
They're all pros, right?
Yeah, fucking wizards. Yeah. It was like and that's like, I remember the look in the face of the manager. It's like do I really give a shit about if Josh is okay? Is Travis's parachute okay?
Yeah, that parachute is expensive.
Right?
For
He's
sure.
like because Travis has got to jump next.
Yeah.
It's like it's the most things. So it's like I knew my place. It's like it wasn't
parachute, dirt bike.
Oh
Josh.
Yeah, I was way lower. That's like I was fucking low.
You're like way down here.
It's like as long as I was still alive, it's like there was no.
Oh, that's insane. I would love to skydive. I just don't know if I would do it without an instructor. I feel like I would want someone strapped to me the gay way, you know?
Well, I think I'd say do either. I would say to recommend to anybody, I'd say do it without.
Well, I mean, eventually.
There's always possible things that could go wrong, but there's also possible things that could go wrong if somebody strapped you, right?
That's what I'm saying. What percentage difference is it?
I have no idea.
But if you had to guess, you jump out with an instructor, it's probably like 99% safe.
You've got all the capabilities to be able to be instructed on how if your lines got tangled, to untangle your lines, right?
Right.
It's like they'll instruct you on some things that, as your parachute gets pulled, you still have a certain amount of time to be able to, untangle because I've had tangled wires or tangled cables or whatever it is. It's like when I've had to untangle them, and it's wild how you get kind of judged, or you get to see how you respond in those moments, right? And I imagine, the pressure in which you've experienced this would be different, but it's not as if you're walking from experiencing no moments of pressure in your life.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So it's like but you'd walk away from if those, like I had thoughts of how awful it would be to have your lines crossed. Yeah, fuck yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I was like but I wasn't going to not do it despite the possibility of
anxious though. Like all the things that you do, whether it's like really intense skiing, motorcycle, skydiving with the Red Bull team, like is it anxiety that's happening inside before?
So that was the funniest thing, because the girl, like the Red Bull girl, I still remember her saying, she's like you looked so green inside the airplane. I hated going up in the airplane. A small airplane that felt insecure and all these other things. Like there's so many insecure feelings I got while being in this small packed, you're leaning down, claustrophobic shit, and you're strapped to things, and then you're jumped down. I was almost felt free as soon as I jumped out of the plane. Like I felt more confined and more anxious.
That's how it is. Like with stand up, like I think about like the most nervous I've ever been for a show, right? Like whether it's a show where like there's people that are going to be there that are like important, or it's a really big venue, or it's, the last thing, or like whatever the external circumstances that makes me really nervous for the show. It's always getting to the theater or getting to the venue until the second you step on stage. That's the worst part. But once you're on stage, it's just, you're in it. Like that's the presence thing. Where just like, you're now in a moment where you have to be present, and it's impossible to think of some other thing. And as soon as you start thinking of some other thing, that's when your wires are crossed, and that's like when you're fucking in a spiral. But for the most part, 99% of the time, the second you're on stage and the light hits you, you're in the thing. But it's all the lead up time and the thinking. It's when your brain, my brain, is doing brain stuff and looking at all this other shit that doesn't matter, when I get fucking anxious and queasy, where I'm like, yeah, this sucks. But the second it happens, then it's fine. And then afterwards, I'm good. but it's just the anticipation of the event that is so much worse than the event itself.
And it's repeating that and doing that as often as you can. And as soon as you start to have that feeling of anxiousness or that feeling of where your mind's taking off, right, is to make that step, right? And it's to, if those moments come in skydiving, which they certainly did, when they come, at the top of a cliff, they come as you're walking into a presentation, if they're, the path is shitty and I'm going to cross it on my bike.
Yeah.
It's like when making that step or taking that step is everything. And then you realize it's like going, I just have to start to make sure I even move towards taking that step quicker.
Do you intentionally seek those moments like of anxiety and like stress? Or is it
I see it in weird places though. It's like when sometimes you find those in places where you wouldn't expect them, right? At least I do. It's like when it's not always in the most obvious ones, like jumping on a plane is fucking obvious. Like, I mean, I think most people are going to find themselves anxious in that. I mean, I'm sure there's the people in which I was with probably found and had no anxiousness.
But maybe even a little though. You ever see those videos of people that are like in the plane jumping for the first time and like they're just freaking out? They're like a cat going to the vet. They're just like in the plane, just like grabbing on everything. And it's like their first time jumping. They got the instructor and the guy's like, nope, we're going. Like I'm weirdly fascinated about that feeling of pure terror where like I can't move. And then
have you ever had it though?
I've never had it like that. No, I've never had it where like I can't move. Like, the videos I'm talking about, like the girl's just like,
you see it in bungee jumping a lot, which is always my funniest one.
Yeah. Like you're on the edge and you're just like, actually, I'm not going to do it. And then they just push you off. But like, it's that moment. I don't think I've ever been fully terrified. And part of me is interested in being there because I know that there is a moment where I will be fully terrified.
So heights don't do it to you, right? So do heights bother you?
I mean, I think the same amount that it bothers like the average person, where like you get to the edge, you kind of jump, your feet tingle a little. But no, I grew up kind of like doing like little cliff jumping things. Like I would get up to like 50, 55, 60 footers, like in North Carolina, just jumping during the summers. And like you do the feet and hands and like hit the water to get. That was my favorite. But no, heights.
At how young?
I was probably high school.
Okay.
It was probably like summers in high school for like soccer camps and stuff. So yeah, I was probably like 15, 16.
Yeah, that's probably an average age for those things. And
yeah.
And mine was no different. Like we'd hunt bridges and do cliffs and all that stuff. And
yeah,
I was always frightened of heights.
Really?
Always. And the thing is, it's like but there was something that I didn't like being scared of it. So I did it a lot.
What degree of fear? Like when Schulz gets near heights, he hates it. We got videos of him. Like we put out vlogs.
But partially,
and stuff.
I think it's like when it's what that means to you. It's like when I didn't want to be scared, but I was.
Yeah,
right?
Isn't that a funny feeling?
So it's like so then part of it's like and I knew that I needed to do it even as I was younger, and I was almost proving to myself, not proving to anybody else.
Yeah, that anger about fear. I have that sometimes. I remember it a lot when I was a kid. I would be afraid of things and be angry. I'd be so frustrated that I was afraid. Like I remember I was like 7 or 8 and I would leave my bedroom because I would like wake up in the middle of the night. It'd be 3 a.m. and I'd wake up and I would be like, I would like feel the dread come over me because I knew that I was alone in my room and it was dark and I was scared. So the second I woke up, I'm just in fear. And I'm frustrated at how afraid I am. And I'm like, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to go to sleep because I'm not afraid. But I would be too overcome with fear and I would start creating these fantasies and these scary scenarios in my head where there'd be a robber or a burglar or someone's in my room, whatever. And then I would eventually just begrudgingly just wake up, put my feet on the ground and just be like, and walk downstairs into my parents' room.
And how old?
I was probably like 7, 8.
Okay, so fuck it, yeah.
I was young, but I remember so tangibly. I remember the anger more than the fear. And I remember walking into my parents' room because this would happen like once every 3 or 4 days, something like that. And I'd walk into my parents' room and be like, "Hey, can I sleep on the floor?" And they'd be like, "Sure." And they had like a little pad.
And remind me how many siblings, if any?
6 siblings.
Okay.
So I was
big
6.
family.
Yeah. I was 6 of 7.
So you were number
6. I have one younger sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have. Wow.
Yeah, but I remember like walking into my parents' room, laying on the floor, and then punching the pillow over and over, just like, fuck, why am I scared? And I just remember the anger about the fear, more than the fear. And it's an interesting thing you point out, like being, when you're a kid, like, oh, I'm afraid of heights, and it's annoying that I'm afraid of heights. and I'm going to seek it out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this is me kind of analyzing me as a kid, as a fucking adult. So it's like when I'm not even sure if I realized it.
Yeah.
To be honest, but it's like I would get in an environment and I, you know, having an ego as a fucking young boy. It's like I worked on the center shaft of the Space Needle, which is that tall building in the center of Seattle.
Of course.
I worked on the roof amongst some steelworkers between the summer of high school and college. I worked as a steelworking apprentice, basically a fucking hack that did like the shit work amongst some steelworkers. But it was all, and one of the jobs I had was like me doing arc welding and some of this stuff of the center shaft of the Space Needle. I got to walk on the roof and everything. And then I did another job that had me, we were working in the hangar that does some assembly stuff for the Boeing airplanes. So it's really fucking tall, right? That job also would have me climb, like, because they were like biker guys and fucking steel workers. And I was a young punk kid, 17, 18 years old. And then I'd have to bring something up to the guy that's welding that's up, I don't know, 15 stories or whatever it is. And I'd have to jimmy up through the scaffolding, you know, and it was, it's like it was an ego thing at that point where it's like it's like, I don't want them to think I'm not fucking this.
Yeah, of course. And
so
especially when you have a job, but it's like, my job is to do the thing that I'm afraid of.
Oh, and it's like I thought these old, you know, biker, you know, welders guys were cool. So I didn't want them to think I wasn't. So I was doing all the, I was like I was fast and I was fucking like jumping up and fucking just running this stuff up. And so all those things, I was doing it and I despised heights.
Yeah.
But I was still doing it. No one would have maybe they all knew. I have no idea, right? But I didn't think anybody knew. But it's like no, I've never been comfortable with heights, even today, but I don't think one would know. A lot of things I do, I think I feed on the way I feel in those places of discomfort.
What do you mean you feed on it?
I'm like drawn to it. So I'm not even sure how or why specifically, but I think it's that I seek to feel. Mm-hmm. I think just feeling something is something that I run towards, or I'm drawn towards. Or
were you doing that even when you were a kid? Like obviously when you were working in high school, but even younger than that, like
I always wanted to. And it's again me thinking back and kind of analyzing, what may have had me, want to do all the, the sports in which I did, which were highly physical. It was always the most physical sport I could do. Yeah. With the most aggression and, most conflict and all those things. Those are the things in which I was running it.
Were you angry like as a kid? Or
Not really.
No. You just liked the sports.
Yeah, I liked hitting things. Yeah. I think. That's all I did. It's like with any sport that I'd go into, it was football. It was the aggression, and I would be the guy that was the fullback. Right. I would be the inside linebacker. Those were the positions in which I was always end up. Probably because that's where I was physically suited to be. Sure. But it's also where I wanted to be. And I wanted to run into people. Yeah. I didn't even try to run around people.
You're not like a really violent dude though. Like I don't even see you as like particularly confrontational.
No, I don't. I don't feel as if I am. Right. I'm not. You wouldn't find me like out looking for some confrontation.
Sure.
I would assume, find. Yeah. I don't have a lot. Especially as an adult. I don't think there's many reasons for me to. So. Right. But confrontations aren't really something that's in my fucking life. Yeah. Right. I'm not around a bunch of people that bring that or have that even themselves. Like I'm not, it doesn't make me happy. Yeah. Like fuck.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Yeah, it's I don't find joy in it. Yeah. But doesn't make me smile.
Right, but you liked the sports that were like semi-violent or like
oh yeah, and I still do. Part of even riding a bike, there's
aggression in that.
There's some there's plenty of aggression, but I think there's a difference between aggression and just sheer violence. It's like I don't think I've ever seeked violence in the raw sense of just wanting to harm somebody. It's like but there's I think part of what playing any of those physical sports, especially as a young boy, where your testosterone's going fucking nuts, right? And it's like you want, and at least I did, there's aggression. You fucking wrestle, you fight. It's like it's part of it. I mean, that's part of growing up as a boy. At least it wasn't my life. I mean, similar to you, but there were 6 boys.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had so many siblings.
Yeah. So there's 6 of us, and they're all boys.
And are you the oldest?
Second oldest.
Second oldest. And how old is the youngest?
Jordan, this is going to sound good. I have no idea how fucking old he is, to be honest. I don't.
I do the same shit.
I have no idea. No, he's in his 30s. I mean, I
remembered everyone's ages in my family like 5 or 6 years ago, and then that's still how old they are to me to this day.
I've misaged myself, so it's like so I can't.
Bro, that happened to my brother's friend. We were like all hanging out at dinner one time, and we were like talking, and I was like, "How old are you, by the way?" And he's like, I'm 36," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then we were kind of talking. And my brother all of a sudden realized, he's like, dude, I'm 35. How are we in the same grade? When is your birthday? And they started deducing this. And all of a sudden he realized that he's been using the wrong birthday for an entire like year and a half. He just thought he was the wrong age.
An extra year?
Literally, when people asked him how old he was 36 when really he was 35. And he just like in the middle of this Buffalo Wild Wings is like, dude, I just got a year back. Like I've never seen like the elation on someone's face of being like, I have all this time. Like he just couldn't believe it and literally was using the wrong age forever. So I've never done it with myself yet, but I do it with my siblings all the time. So I don't.
You are 26.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot
so
less
it's like
numbers.
Fucking give yourself time.
A lot fewer numbers to count.
You got.
At what point do birthdays just not even matter? Like, what point are you just like?
I mean, I think to some people they apparently matter a lot. To me, it really doesn't fucking matter.
Well, what age? You're just like 32, and you're like, yeah, I'm over it. I don't do birthdays anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I have to look forward to, huh? Just time being a construct.
I mean, big family. I do so many things independent. My closest friends are kind of scattered throughout the world.
Right.
So it's kind of just, it's like going, I don't put much weight on my birthday. Like as in, I need to, it's like going, I'm happy that I've lived another year, I guess, but it's like going, it's like fucking party about it or celebrate about it. Or I want somebody to buy me a gift.
You don't do a birthday week? You don't make it a whole thing on Facebook? No. Josh's birthday week?
Fuck no.
Come on, dude. I'm going to throw you a birthday week, whether you like it or not. I'm going to make it a whole thing.
Giddy up.
I'm going to make it a whole thing. I'm going to come over. We're going to get all your siblings. We're going to get the ones you don't know their ages. We're going to have a whole siesta. It's going to be crazy.
All right. I mean, hey, it's like I hope everyone has a good time. I mean, we'll have fun, but it's like and I look at most of my life in the sense like I want to do whatever I want to do every day.
Yeah.
Right. So to wait for this one day a year to do the things in which I want to do, I go, that's fucking waste.
Yeah, you found a cool way to you found a cool lane for freedom. Like, I feel like you are generally pretty free. Like, I think there's very few things that you do that you really don't want to do, which is a cool place to be in. I'm like trying to get to that spot in my life where I only do the things that I like to do or that I know are good to do. Does that make sense? Like, I'm going to have kids one day and I might not like to take them to school all the time. But I'm going to because I know it's a good thing to do. Does that make sense?
Well, and also it's like then it's that mindset towards you end up liking taking your kids to school. Not that I do. I don't have any children. But
right.
It's like and you might not now look at it as something you'd like to do, right? But you have no idea. Mm-hmm. And then instead of looking at it, if you didn't at that time find some type of enjoyment in it, it's like kind of alter that way of thinking or reassess what about it that's providing all these wonderful things in the relationship with your children or whatever. And then you change that mindset towards that. It's like there's plenty of things that I could look at from one angle or one point of view and say, I don't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But most of those things I find enjoyment in because it's such a part of the game type piece that those other things don't work without it. So it's really a part of these things in which I thoroughly enjoy. Mm-hmm. So this is really an integral part of that, which makes me then in return enjoy it. Right. But I look at it with
so it's perspective
appreciation.
And framing. Yeah. I mean, gratitude I think is like the single greatest skill, if you can practice like radical gratitude and just be grateful for all the little things, it just makes your life so much better just in general without really having to change the circumstances themselves. However, changing the really shitty circumstances is a generally positive thing.
Well, yeah, and it's like but that should never not be part of what you're attempting and working on anyhow, right? It's like no, it's like being complacent and accepting something that fucking sucks is kind of fucking silly.
Yeah.
But to know that thing that maybe sucks is part of the process in having the things that don't suck, and the process of this soon to not be part of your life.
What's up, guys? We're going to take a break real quick because I got to tell you a story. A dear friend of mine was driving on the highway the other night, driving, all of a sudden drunk driver comes on the highway the wrong direction, headlights going down the highway the wrong way. My friend swerves out of the way, gets sideswiped, gets spun around. It's a nightmare. And the last thing you want to do after you get into a bad accident is have to find an attorney, and you got to call someone and they're asking you questions, and it's just a lot to deal with. If you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan, and getting on the line with an attorney couldn't be easier. It's more like using an app or like ordering food than it is trying to get an attorney. In 8 clicks or less, you can submit a claim to Morgan & Morgan and get on the line with someone that can help you. They have over 100 offices nationwide, over 800 lawyers. One of the amazing things about Morgan & Morgan is that their fee is free unless they win. Unless they win your case, it is free. That's a pretty good deal. If you're interested, for more information, go to forthepeople.com/Gagnon. That is forthepeople, forthepeople.com/GAGNON, or dial pound law. That's forthepeople.com/Gagnon or pound law from your cell phone. Now let's get back to the show.
So how do you get to that point? Like, how have you arrived at a place where you kind of just do what you want to do and you live freely? Was it always like this? Were you born into a bunch of money and you just got to?
No, I certainly have not been born to a lot of money. But I don't think I was suited to have money for most of my life.
Right.
Like I don't think I was suited for it.
Yeah, you've lived multiple different lives, but I guess you can kind of make it into like
and I
BC
think
and
part
AD
of me, part of the process is like the conquest, or what you do in accomplishing something and having something that you're going for and then accomplishing that, having money at the end of that, and then acknowledging all those things that you enjoyed in that process. A weird part of it's like when I have a high regard for money because it's a critical part of doing certain things, and many things can't be done without it. But I've been fortunate simultaneous to have money be kind of discarded, but only thought of as a tool. And money isn't what I'm seeking. I'm seeking for something, or an experience, or like even a physical thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like I look and try to figure out how I can obtain that thing or that experience.
What is that thing or what is that experience? Does it fluctuate?
Yeah, I mean, it could be one element of a business. It could be something as silly as a watch, or a motorcycle, or a jacket, or a pair of shoes. It could be, and I don't mean, it's like all of those things mean a lot to me, but there's generally like an adventure or story or something that constitutes what I find so valuable, and that's that process of obtaining it, or process of what now is associated with it, because me obtaining it had all these wonderful experiences and adventures and this conquest of succeeding in it. Right. So, but money, I don't think about money
at all.
No, of course I do, but I can think about a bunch of things simultaneous, but it's still not
Money's
on the
not
top.
Number one.
Not even close.
But did it used to be?
No, I mean, I think there's phases, and the younger I was, the more I didn't yet find that it's like money's just one piece. It's like if you want a house on the water, we assume that let's first get money then to obtain that house on the water. Mm-hmm. And then I awkwardly, because dyslexia and everything else that had worked out in my life, it's like I never ended up obtaining or achieving anything by going through a traditional step of processes. Sure. So like when I wanted to go to college or I wanted a degree and stuff, it's like most of it was fucking a slew of workarounds. Mm-hmm. It really was. Like nothing happened in the sequence it was supposed to. And nothing happened like, the guy next to me who was following kind of the process in which, the process of the way in which it was designed, right? Mine was like no, it happened fucking some shifty stuff or there was some workarounds but I ended up in the same place. Right. So I was always looking at how can I get to that end place? How can I just have that house I want? Right. And then I eventually, my boat came from my partnership with Mastercraft because I was doing all the graphics. It's like so I got the boat. I never got the money to buy the boat. I just got the boat. Right. And when I wanted skis or if I wanted sunglasses, it's like a lot of my things were like no, I was doing a project with Von Zipper. So that's how I got my glasses. Right. I mean, I got paid eventually too. And then it's like my shoes were mostly projects. And I had a massive number of rad fucking Nike SB shoes and all these other things. It's like no, I didn't pay for one. Right. Right. So everything eventually started happening more in this skipping the step of money and the obtaining of the things in which I wanted.
Right. But were you without money at the start of these things?
Oh, always. It's like when I always started everything I did with no money.
Right. And what does your lifestyle look like if you have no money at that point? Like just living in a friend's place?
No, I lost everything at the age of my first kind of go at creating something. I think I lost everything at the age of 28. And losing everything and then, kind of starting from scratch.
How did you lose everything at 28? What does that 6 months look like?
So the first kind of company was oriented around kind of media, but graphic in a medium to creating media for small action sport related things and pro athletes. And we were using kind of media pieces to, it's silly now when I look back, but it's like playing cards that were electronic, like the electronic playing cards there were like CD-ROMs and you could, I did one for Brian Deegan and his pro model shoe for when he did his first pro model shoe with Etnies, and you actually got one of these cards, and within one of these cards is videos and photography. And it was but there were so many wonky problems. And it was pre-technology before technology as we know it today, right? So these CD-ROMs only worked in the trays. As soon as they moved to, the
ingestible disc thing.
The slot in which you fed it into, they became obsolete. They became garbage.
They only worked in the tray.
Yeah. But there was a window in which trays were the only the ones that existed, right?
Right.
So, but that's not what, we still had some print pieces that would accompany it. But that was kind of the neat little thing that was kind of nobody had done or we were doing for the first time. And that's when that was my first into action sports, which is kind of what my objective was. It's I wanted to work with all these companies that I thought were cool. Right. And it was just that I thought they were cool. And I thought it was fun. And
so you didn't have dreams of money. You were just I just want to
I want to do cool. this.
Yeah.
I want to be in this world. Right. It's this is what I want to be around. So for me to be in that, I'm pretty good, competent in most any of those sports, but I'm certainly no pro. Right? It's I can hang with most of them. So I can hang with skiers on a motorcycle. I can hang out with motorcycle peoples on skis. Yeah. That's why I like to say it's whatever sport you don't do, I can do great with you. Yeah. But I can still hang, and it's you throw me in a race car, you could throw me on a motorcycle, you could throw me in any of these things, and I'll be able to hang. I'll be competent and probably a little bit more than competent, but that I could dance in any of these things, but I was by far no pro. And creative is kind of where my place was, but I was not a creative in the traditional sense. But none of my stuff was traditional. I didn't draw. I still don't know how to use any program on the computer.
Oh, really?
None.
Oh, hilarious.
Yeah.
So when you're making a mock-up for a jacket, how do you design it?
I might sketch a little bit,
yeah,
but it's fairly sloppy and fairly rudimentary now. I was pretty good at drawing when I was younger, but it's something that I did a lot. And that's what was fun when I was, talking with, your friend, he's largely based in like sketching at the beginning stages.
Kid Super, you mean?
Yeah, Kid Super, and like and how different we are, and then and where we end up, there's a lot of fun similarities. It's like, but our approaches are very different, and then and so we had a lot of fun talking about these things. But in that thing, it's like when I just found my way to get to the end. And that was even in the creative field. It's like, oh, no, I just found a way to get to the end. I wanted to do graphics. So I was like going, do I want to do the graphics, or do I want to create that graphic that I can then input it into this, let's say, this sport, or on this medium within this sport? And it's like and sometimes it's like, I just want to work with that company. That's it. So my objective was to work with the company.
Okay.
Where it's like, so then I just found a way to work with the company.
How?
Which one?
Like Etnies, for example.
Etnies was with like Brian Deegan and like the Pro Model shoes within these media pieces, but based on promoting and bringing additional creative that brought additional value to this Pro Model shoe.
Got it.
Within like Von Zipper, it was 360 display of their eyewear on the internet. At the very beginning of internet, e-commerce still didn't exist.
So you're just coming up with ideas and then executing them.
Yeah. And it was always within that creative field, because it's a pretty free, you can come into that and even kind of operate within it.
But how do you even pitch yourself to these companies? Like if you're just a guy in a house, how do you get relationships with like these companies? Like you can't just show up and be like, hey, can I do a 3D model?
Anybody. I had no problem calling anybody. I mean, I don't think I got told to fuck off that often.
So just picking up the phone and being like, hey, can we talk?
I mean, again, it's like when was this? It was fucking early 90s. It could have been. I don't remember what type of, now it's all kind of blended into a tornado. So, but yeah, there's like, your biggest obstacle then was, I guess, just finding who that creative director was for Von Zipper, and then
trying to get in front of him.
Yeah, and then get on the phone with him, and then having enough clout from doing one thing that could
leverage into
take you into the next. So and sometimes it's like going, but in that stuff, I mean, I still do, I think. I still will. It's like when I do stuff that has no financial exchange. I certainly did then.
Right.
I just wanted to prove myself.
So you're like, let me just work.
It's like, I wanted to do this idea, and it's like, I'll just do it. It's after I fucking pull it off, pay me. And
at this point, you didn't really have much money.
Oh no, it's like but I didn't really need it. I mean, I didn't think I needed it. I may have needed it more than I knew, but I never had money. So I didn't come from a place in which, I was lucky enough, early enough, to want what I was going after as an objective. That's what I wanted. I'd never been with money. Right. And I was lucky enough to never have debt.
Right. That's great. So if you don't have debt, then you're just at even, and then if you got a few $100 a month, you can kind of like make.
Oh, but I was a shifty guy too. At the same time, it's like when I'd already worked in the Caribbean as a beverage manager for Weston, I'd worked a full-time job from a very early age. Like I never didn't work.
So you were saving up if you could, kind of.
Well, I mean, I worked all through college too. It's like when I didn't work, I worked at the Olympic weight room. I worked, before I was 21, cleaning toilets at the main, like most popular bar, and selling hot dogs outside it. Well, full load, right? And then working behind the bar and in front of the bar, the main bar at the university, simultaneous to working in the gym, simultaneous to working at a sorority so I get free food.
Working at a sorority?
Oh, yeah.
Doing what?
Houseboy, meaning you like fucking serve food and clean dishes or something.
Hilarious.
It's like I did every job, but I still had a full load. And then I would leave for 6 months on an internship that I obtained through sending letters to a foreign country and then be off to the Micronesian Islands. Whoa. Then I'd come back, but I'd only go, I'd get paid. My internships were all paid.
The internships.
Yeah. So I'd come back with money.
Got you. So, and you could save that.
For sure. Well, then I'd use that within school and I'd get into trouble and all these things, and I'd have to help myself out of trouble, which was always part of the scenario.
Right.
But then, yeah, and then there wasn't but 2 weeks from my graduation till I was on a plane to the Caribbean for my first corporate job.
Right.
And then my corporate job lasted for a handful of months in the Caribbean. And then I was like, I was best suited to go back to.
Sure.
So after I got back, it's the same difference. I'm in material planning at a Kenworth factory and side hustling, and then working up through a corporate thing, but then hitting a ceiling quickly and being impatient and
so then
shifting out.
You're using these leverage points in these creative worlds to like just offer value to these brands.
As much
and just cold calling everyone.
Oh, I didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I was like going, I just wanted what I wanted. And I mean, that's the thing I look back. I'm so happy that, this naiveness, ambition, those were all like important pieces of the recipe.
Yeah.
Like going, no, I wanted it. And that's one thing that I can look back. It's like going, no, I really wanted it. And it's like going, and I think that's one of the most important things. It's like, just really want something.
And then how do you lose it?
Well, how did I lose everything?
Yeah.
I didn't have no business sense. I had no business sense. I mean, I trusted everybody. Like, I trusted everybody. Contractual. I didn't bother with contracts. I didn't bother with down payments. I was like going, I was a trusting motherfucker.
So what happened?
Big project. It was the first one that I ventured outside of, let's say, the action sport, genuine interest. And this was going to be a financially beneficial transaction. Doing a meaty piece for a big mortgage company. And they were a dodgy group, but it was big and it would be financially prosperous. And then they shifted gears, and I was sitting there holding the cost of this print campaign and all this stuff that was absolutely worthless. And that emptied me.
How much money?
I mean, I didn't have very much, so it really was, but I had to sell everything I owned. I didn't have anything. Like, I had to trade in at that time I had like a Jeep Cherokee. I traded that Cherokee in to a Cadillac dealership that would give me deference on payment for my first car payment for 3 months.
Damn.
And it was like an 88 Cadillac DeVille. So I was rolling an 88 Cadillac DeVille it was a fucking...
It's a good trade, low-key.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was
financially
cool
bad
enough.
trade.
It was a terrible. But it's like when it gave me some space.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anyone in my life that would loan me money.
So you're working with this company, and you basically put
it was mine. This was my first company.
Oh, the mortgage company.
No, the creative thing was mine.
Right, but you fronted the money for the print campaign.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing in that sense. It's like going, and I trusted everybody, and it's like going, and just it was all. I mean, yeah, they should have held to what we agreed to, but it's also
there's
like
no contract.
Yeah, it's like going, I didn't know shit. But I learned fast.
Was it like 20K, 50K?
It was between the two. It was upwards.
Damn.
Right,
and it's everything you had.
Everything. Like literally all I owned fit in the trunk of the Cadillac.
Yeah.
And then I slept on my dad's couch at his house for a couple weeks and got a bond company, a municipal treasury and corporate bond, information company to hire me as a person that could help them now take this into a branding position.
Were you devastated at 28, being like, "Oh, I lost everything. Like, I'm a failure." Like, what is your mental state? I feel like if I
partied a lot, so I mean, I think I walked away from that, and the saddest part for me at that time was I was, doing what I wanted in the sense I was living in Whistler, doing this action sport shit that was dreamy. It was like my dream, and then to have to come back and kind of. But I didn't lose one pace. It's like when I was up at 4 a.m. every day, I was trying to, find somebody to hire me to do fucking anything. And I was willing to work in like the bond market and stuff. I had no fucking skills in that. I had there's no experience, reverence towards finance.
Right.
But it's like going, I had learned enough in kind of a couple of areas while doing what I attempted to do on my own. And then my background that was extensive to some extent for a pretty young guy. I mean, I was a beverage manager for a hotel, which is not relevant, but still the work ethic and management came from that. And then I worked in material planning and export sales and international export for Kenworth and Peterbilt semi trucks and aftermarket, and then worked in technology and ran the New England territory.
Right. So just all over the place.
Yeah. And it was all with hitting a ceiling and then getting bored or impatient and then moving.
Right.
And then that finally sent me on my own at 27. So I wasn't like with like, I think I had $10,000 to my, is what I was worth. Like, so fucking, to me, it was worth something, but it's like when look back, it's like going, no, I had big balls and small brain. It's like I thought the world was, I could do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, and I didn't lose that, and I still haven't lost that to some extent.
So
like,
even when
I think anything's possible.
Even when you did lose everything, you weren't shaken.
I don't remember. It's like I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to make it.
Yeah.
So, and that make it was, of course, adjusted. Like when you don't have anything, to make it is to have some level of security. But I never was not dreaming of all these big grandioso things that I thought were possible. And they were always changing. So I was like and I was most alive chasing something.
Yeah.
So I didn't.
As long as you had a goal, you had a rabbit to go for, it made everything else feel better.
Yeah, and I think that there's some power in being young, right? And there's some power in having, limited responsibilities. I didn't fucking have any real estate that was holding me. It's like I didn't have credit card debt that was following me around. I didn't even have a credit card, right? It's like I didn't grow up with it being something that I was taught that was even acceptable, right?
Yeah.
It's like to have something that you couldn't pay for was...
Yeah, if you just don't have the money, you don't get it. Like this idea of putting things on credit and then I'll pay you back later is like...
Or paying somebody else interest.
Yeah, like just to
that
get
was
money
a lesson.
to pay for something.
It's my nod to my parents. It's like, no, it's like when that, if it was intentional or not, it's like that was instilled at a very young age. It's like,
yeah.
No, and I was willing to work. I was willing to do things that were questionably, it's like, no,
What do you mean?
Nah, we'll leave that alone. But it's like when I didn't, it's like no, I would do things that were, I was gonna survive, right? It's like
right.
when it's being put in a position where, you're feeling as if, and our threshold for that too, like what is surviving, right? I'm sure, mine's different, and it's
yeah. People have different standards for what their level of survival is, which is good. But
yeah,
if you're not meeting that threshold for what survival is for you, then
I think it's good to get to that awareness stage where that it's like going, no, I'm in a stage where it's like going, I will fight.
Yeah.
And it's like going, and I love some of the hot things that you hear from those motivational motherfuckers on Instagram say, but it's like going, no, I mean, I'm in a fight. I almost seek the feeling in which you get from being in a battle in this seek to conquest, or this thing where you're conquesting.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like going, and there's something to that. And
yeah. The feeling of being on a path, on a conquest is the best, where you're just moving and you're just like, I have a goal and I'm going to achieve it no matter what. And you're just head down. And throughout the deviations and the failures along the way, you're just so focused on getting the thing. I remember those points, and like, it's really intoxicating. It's better than any drug, is the feeling of pursuit of the achievement. And it can be material, but I think the most beneficial ones in my life have always been like bigger than that. It's always been like a more grand goal, where like, I don't know, it might be like some very broad career aspiration. And sometimes I'll arrive without even really knowing it. And I'll be like, oh, damn. I didn't even realize that I achieved the goal because I was like focused on like the next goal after that without even thinking about the goal. And that's the best feeling.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's common, right? It's like when you can have that dream, and that dream that's quite grand at one stage in your life, and then as you're fighting and doing whatever's necessary in that conquest of that dream, it's like going, that dream's alive, so it's evolving, right? Yeah. And that dream now, with it, you're not even being conscious of it, now has became much grander.
Yeah.
Right? And then by the time you've arrived at what was your dream X time ago.
New dream.
Yeah, that dream's now evolved. And that's the best. I mean, if that's the place in which I'm most happy.
Yeah, of course. I think most people are. I always think about this with Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. I always bring up this book. I love it. And he just writes about a moment. Are you familiar with the book?
No.
This is this guy.
There's like 2 books I've read in my entire life.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Like, fully dyslexic. You can't read.
So it's like,
he basically was a psychologist that lived through the Holocaust. And he's recounting his time in one of the camps in just like the most deplorable, vicious position another human can put you in. Like, it's just an awful situation, obviously. But as a psychologist, he's analyzing himself and he's analyzing the people around him. And he has this perspective that is just like once in a generation, fortunately. You know what I mean?
So when would this been?
This is like late 30s, early 1940s that he's writing this.
And when he went into that, he was already an adult, right?
Yeah.
And he was
a full psychologist in Poland or Germany. I'm not exactly sure. And as a Jew, he was a Jewish psychologist. He was put into one of the concentration camps, and he just writes about his time. And there's just so many.
And he was writing this while he was experiencing it, or did he write it post?
I think he was writing after, but I think he had some writings, or like, I think he was able to journal parts of it while he was actually in. I can't recount exactly, but the thing that always sticks with me is like the idea of purposeless suffering. That the only true suffering is suffering that lacks a purpose. That if you have a purpose, it's kind of suffering. It's sort of like pain, but you can justify the pain because you know it's for some type of greater good. But once your hope is gone, and once the purpose of your suffering is gone, then it's true suffering. And he thinks about this, in relation to seeing his family again once he gets out of the camp. And he goes, I have to believe that there is an end to this. And I have to believe that my family will be there when I get out, and that I'll reconnect with my children, I'll reconnect with my parents, and that my life will be whole again. And I need that hope, because without it, all of this suffering and pain is for naught. And once you lose the hope, once you go, there's nothing out there for me, this is never going to end, I'm going to die in here, and this is going to be the rest of my life, you'll die tomorrow. Because now your suffering is purposelessness. Your suffering is purposeless. And I always think about that, and it's connected to what you're saying now. Like, having the dream, you can justify the means, to that end. And it's really seductive. But as soon as you get to a point where you're dreamless and you don't have any other aspiration, if you don't have any other, like, I'm going to start a clothing company like you did, or I'm going to start this brand, or I'm going to start this, pursuit for freedom, whatever that pursuit is, all the pain you endure in your everyday life is just, you feel it so much more. And I really empathize with people that are hopeless. That is the worst thing you can take from someone, is their hope. I would, take my life, or take anything, take my home, like my house, my money, take anything. You can't take hope from people. And as long as you have that dream, you can justify anything in the meantime.
Yeah, I can't understand not dreaming, I guess. And that's the part that, like, I get lost when someone is incapable or unable to, or maybe have lost it. And maybe they never had it. I don't know. But it's like but that dreaming, to me, of course, like you said, it allows you to endure all these things. But your dreams are guided, or at least mine have been, or redirected, or as I'm dreaming or on the conquest for X, right? And then I hit an obstacle like losing everything.
Yeah.
Right? And that obstacle and that kind of realignment ends up being my favorite thing because it's now adjusted my dream. Like that I couldn't have adjusted on my own.
Right. You could never have known to adjust it unless the circumstances
I still would have
forced
been
you to.
on that path with conviction and fucking everything I've got. But I needed something drastic to say, fuck you. You know, and it was a situational thing which forced me that. And it was one of those things where, yeah, it sucked at the moment. But the fact that I was still dreaming allowed me to now actually, my dream got larger.
Yeah.
And was redirected. And my conviction was shaken.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
But it was only shaken for the better. And I can look at those kind of forks or those kind of dysfunctional, impactful moments of transition in my life. And I've got clear ones. Like they're not fucking...
It's like very stark.
Oh yeah, they're not round corners.
Yeah,
even. Like it's a
skirt.
It's
90
like
degrees.
Motherfucker, that one's not happening.
Yeah.
Like, and you are in an explosion. It's a crash.
Yeah.
And I've been able to now be more. I can even foresee the crash. That's like it's like 'cause I've had a handful of them.
It's happened so many times. You're like, oh, I can see when it's kind of coming.
Yeah, and they become less. I mean, they become impactful, but you're able to you're conscious as they're approaching or conscious as they're happening.
Right.
And then you're responding to them, you know, with all the experiences that you hopefully grabbed from the earlier crashes.
That's what I love about this idea. I forget, I was talking to my buddy, John Levy, and he talked to me about anti-fragility. Have you ever heard this idea? It's like human beings are anti-fragile. And that, I forget, there's some writer that wrote
So
about
what
this.
does anti-fragile mean?
Literally, like, you think of like a glass or a plate that is fragile. And that as you drop it or something hard happens to it, it breaks.
Okay.
And it's irreparable. Humans are the exact opposite. That as bad things happen, that breaking actually makes us stronger. And that is the bad things and like those pivots in your story and in your line that you even just said it. They're like, yeah, they get easier. They're easier to cope with. They're easier to see. And if though even the later pivots in your story might have been worse than the earlier ones, but just by the fact that you had multiple earlier ones, it was easier to deal with the bigger, more painful ones later because of that anti-fragility. So anytime people are averse to failure, averse to like pain, the answer is always like, embrace it, rush into it if you can, because it's going to make you
fuck up.
It's going to make you so much better off.
Well, and that's one of the fun bike analogies I have as you get like speed wobbles. Oh, it's like going those moments where, you know, speed is actually your friend.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And you leaning forward. And it's that lean in method. It's like going, and I've, you know, some of that, the way in which I played sports or the way in which I'd even ski, it's, you know, it has an aggressiveness to it. And even when I ride a motorcycle, it's aggressive. I ride a bike aggressively. Mm-hmm. And that aggressiveness and that lean forward, and when you start to see those moments coming, and instead of going to your heels, you're going to your toes.
But it is counterintuitive and it's scary. Because when you get the speed wobbles, you want to just like hit the brake, stomp on the rear brake.
Oh
and
yeah,
just let it slow down.
Stomp on your brake on a bike in which only has a rear drum brake.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, a 30s panhead is not going to be a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be actually, I don't want to see anyone else do it either. But it's like, yeah, but it's that lean in, right? It's like anytime that adversity is coming to you, if you're still conscious of what's happening and you're present, and then, you know, as you speed in, your mind's able to be calm and actually slow. It's in that, you know, all these contradicting things.
Yeah.
Right. It's like
the same is true in life for sure.
Yeah. And that's like, well, and that's the chaos. It's like going, sometimes my most peaceful place is this calmness among absolute chaos. And it's almost, I mean, I used to do it more than I do now, and sometimes I still catch myself doing it. And sometimes I do it and I actually gain from it. But it's like, no, I inject chaos.
Because that's where you find the peace.
Well, and it's like when it's like when I make the tornado, and then I exist in the tornado, and then me calming the tornado is kind of all this kind of ritualistic fucking creative process sometime in which I go, and it's like when I need to make chaos, and then amongst the chaos, as things calm, as I'm grabbing these things as they're floating, and I'm doing the speed work, and it's like, and I trained, and that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I think there's so much calmness. Like after last night, and I wake up at 4 a.m. I go to bed fairly early. I don't go out drinking. Yeah, that is me, right? It's like and even going out with you guys, we left the restaurant at 1.
Yeah.
And then for me to get to where I'm at in New York, it's like it's another half an hour or whatever. I get back. No, I don't wind down. It still takes me an hour. That's just my process.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm not in bed until 2:30.
Up at 4.
Yeah. It's like, but it's like but I had to go to the gym because I actually found a calmness leaving the gym this morning. I woke up and I was not rested. I was more restful after I lifted weights. And after I did
the same exact way.
So I had to.
If I don't work out for like 2 or 3 days, I'll feel really anxious. And like my brain will just be going, like I'll just feel bad. And then my wife will be like, "Did you work out?" And I'm like, "Oh." That is the thing that actually got me into working out, is once I stopped looking at working out as like a physique, body-driven vanity.
It's fucking here. It's like it's fucking in your head.
Well, actually, there were just there's research. I think it was like the CDC or like some
that's a place that I'm just kidding.
Some governing like
just blind trust,
but some governing like health body basically in the US, or some researchers, I don't know. Basically like they
don't believe anything Mark's saying right now. It's like in contradiction to that.
You're actually gonna eat your words, because they actually came out for the first time basically saying that psychologists and therapists need to I guess psychologists are the people that can prescribe, but they're like, the first prescription for depression and anxiety should be working out and fitness. And this is what people have been saying for years, is that as people are coming in with anxiety and depression, being like, and they're just getting put on like Lexapro or like antidepressants or
everything is slowing down, slowing them down.
Yeah, getting on pills and shit, instead of being like, hey, you should work out. And it sounds like a really reductive thing to tell someone that's in pain, like, hey, just go work out. But it truly has impacted my life so much. And not even being like, oh, I'm going to go lift every single day. Just like moving your body is just like ingrained in our biology. And now researchers are finally suggesting like, oh, that should be the go-to for depression and anxiety.
Well, yeah, and even
some people might need
for a busy brain, right?
Yeah.
Which is the opposite of those things. It's like when you have a busy brain, it's like when you can find a certain level of calmness and like a balancing of your probably chemicals, in a healthier, and again, there's a benefit physically. Yeah. But there's just as much a benefit in it mentally.
Yeah. And I think the same with food.
There's no question. And that's where I always like, no, it's even what you consume intellectually. It's like if you watch certain things,
it will make you feel worse. Scrolling on Instagram every day makes me feel worse.
Well, it's no different than, it's like when you're intellectually consuming McDonald's. Right. So it's like and I don't eat McDonald's because I feel like shit. And
of course.
Last time I had McDonald's was like, oddly enough, in like Mexico 20 years ago or something. Yeah. Right. So it's like, but it's like if our physical activities are equivalent to eating McDonald's, meaning it's just garbage, we play video games. Our athletics are through video games.
Yeah. You're literally eating McDonald's.
Yeah, and then you physically are consuming an equivalent to McDonald's, if not literally McDonald's.
Exactly. And then you're reading and consuming intellectually McDonald's.
You're fucked, right? But each one of those things. So let's say if you only consume healthy food, but your physical activity and your physical interaction is garbage. It's like you've got one piece that's fairly good, but these other things are just as equally important. And really, you need all three.
Yeah. And that's what I always tell people. Like, anytime people are like, dude, I'm like dealing with whatever. I'm like, and sure, some people need more. I don't doubt that. There are some people that if you have clinical chronic depression, like lifting a couple weights isn't going to do it for you.
I'm not going to advise you on anything.
Go talk to your doctor. That's not for me.
Don't take anything I say as something that's like, I'm giving you a recommendation saying I think something will be the right thing for you.
But generally, I think as a blanket statement, the first place to start is like, what are those 3 aspects of your diet? Like, are you moving your body? Are you filling it up with good things? And are you reading and listening to good things?
No question. And I think it's like if you're doing anything that's chemical without those three things kind of addressed, I would question the thoughtfulness of you taking any chemical fixes. Right? Because now
whether
you're
prescribed or recreational.
Yeah, whatever your fucking fancy is.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to be in anybody's business. Just stay out of my fucking way. In regards to you consume what you want.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I don't think you're best suited if your objective is to be happy.
Now, were you always this way though?
I mean, for me to play athletics in like the way in which I was, again, going after to play athletics, it's like no, I had to. Like,
yeah, you didn't have a choice. Your body was
I mean, I had to eat a certain way so I could achieve the certain thing in which I was going after.
So you always ate pretty well.
Yeah, and I ate as much as I could, and I was very conscious of what constitutes a healthy diet, and
minus the alcohol.
Yeah, I mean that was also what enabled me to consume and party in the way in which I did when I was younger, is because I was, all these other working parts were operating at a pretty high level. Like my diet and physical activities were always at a pretty high level. And my interest intellectually, no, I'm not claiming to be an intellect, but I was always so interested in people that were intellectual, right? I liked being around people that I thought were interesting, and I found people intelligent that had wildly cool experiences as interesting. So as much as I could be around those people that I found interesting, I did. Right? And that fulfilled a lot of that intellectual curiosity and intellectual diet or intellectual things I needed. It's like no, I was very fortunate. I was around, I was always
getting all three in some capacity.
Yeah, for sure. And I was, those things, it's like I adopted that and had the awareness of the diet at a very young age.
Right.
And it's like and I felt the calmness of my mind and my ability to be, able to play in all the things I was playing in by being extremely physically active.
Yeah.
And it was incorporated into work and all these other things. So it was all like this inner working, thing where one thing was never kind of neglected or one thing wasn't all part of the others. And I mean, and it's still like the same thing. It's like when I travel to wherever, it's like like last night, it's like, no, that would like when I eat with other people, I eat whatever we're eating.
Yeah.
It's like it's like I have no problems.
Yeah, you like to connect. Yeah, I'm the same way.
But it's like, but when I'm on my own, it's like, no, it's fucking healthy.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Healthy.
I'm the same way, 100%. But yeah, if we're all hanging, like I'm not gonna be the guy that's like, I can't.
It's like, no, and it's fun to be able to have the freedom to do so. It's like it was fucking fun.
Yeah.
Right?
And you allow yourself that because you are so strict and regimented the rest of the time.
But I want to. It's like I want to eat healthy.
Yeah.
It's like where I stay, like in New York, it's like, no, I first go to a healthy grocery store when I first land.
Oh, really?
And I stock my fridge.
At the hotel?
Well, I'm staying in an apartment, but it's like same difference.
Right.
It's like no, I have my breakfasts and all these things. It's like and I have been fortunate when I'm in New York is I've pre-pandemic and the few times I was in New York during that time before, I didn't come here for 2 years or 3 years. I was in that same place. So I've got a level of familiarity. And when I go to Tokyo, like, no, I stay in the same place, right? So it's like when I land in Tokyo, and I mean, they even call it my home. It's like your home.
Yeah.
Like,
you love Japan.
I love it. Yeah, and it's.
How old were you when you first went to Japan?
I didn't go until I was old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the first time I went to Japan was. Oh, we were talking about this because I was with a guy from. One of my bootmaker friends, we were talking, and he's like, I met him 7 or 8 years ago, 7 years ago. 7 was my first time in Japan.
Wow. And when did you start Blackberry?
Maybe I went to Japan 8 years ago. Within the first year of Japan, going after the resurrection and kind of the adventure of Black Bear Brand, I was in Japan because Hail Mary, a Japanese magazine, did a feature on me within my first year.
Gotcha. So you started Black Bear like 9 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's 8 years ago right now.
Oh, wow.
Like, so it was in the springtime, so it was this end of winter, March.
Right. What did you do from losing everything at 28 to then starting Black Bear?
So financial stuff was kind of my escape, or kind of what was able to help me pull out. And that was in the bond market. So it was in fixed income, and it was an informational network for that little world. And again, this is still largely pre-internet to what we know it today. And what I did is I came in and brought in a bunch of the creative aspect of redesigning the presentation of this. And it was then I started to work with Standard & Poor's and Fidelity and bring in advertising. So I was doing some of that fuckery. And then, but then
did you like that work?
No, I was just playing chess, right? It's like when I was just putting pieces together, and
it's not very creative, I guess.
I mean, it's like that was the fun part for me. So it's like when eventually within a year, because I kind of did all the formatting and redesigning, and I had a bunch of these different interworking things that were financially beneficial to him. And I then owned part of the advertising, which was part of the deal because I developed it, and then the whole look and feel of it was mine. And, you know, I'd be on the phone with a Von Zipper. Next phone call I'd be on with Standard & Poor's, right? And then I'd have somebody painting graffiti in my office,
right?
Because I was going to do a graffiti art piece, and then I was getting a Nike SB shoe sent to me because they were going to launch. Yeah, I was like, that's the thing. It's like when I'm in a tornado, and that's where I was like, and I'm still like kind of happy in that chaotic creative space,
right?
Similar to the space in which we went to yesterday.
Yeah, it's
like but mine was just one huge room with skateboards and like any sport direction, or if it was skateboards or skis or whatever it was that I could do a project with, and I'd end up negotiating within my project piece like all the product shit that I thought was fun and that I liked. And
then how do you pivot from that for 10 years to then just quitting everything and then just going all in on Black Bear?
Each one of them had kind of its phases too, so it had its life cycle. Like, so 360 display and some of the photography stuff. And again, I'm not a photographer, but that was kind of one of the tricks that I came up with. And then that led into graphics with like a mastercraft. And to prove what this idea was, I ended up putting it into the market to prove it. And then I ended up owning it. And then I ended up operating that while doing all these other things and doing some bond stuff. And you're doing all these variety of things. And it's like but that also had its life cycle. And I was at a stage, at least with some of the previous things, where I was watching even products or ideas live their life and foreseeing and seeing them ending. I could kind of see it because I would have created that. I've been, let's say, the first ones that had done it, and then done it in a commerce, and put it into the market. So then I'm kind of shifting out, and I always would I didn't like this stuff. I mean, I found it exciting because I was proving to somebody that this could be cool and that this could work, and then showing them how it could work.
Right.
But then as soon as that would be like, oh no, I wasn't interested. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
It's like, and I didn't do it and it was all, fashion had always been part of it. I mean, I would pitch stuff and send stuff to different companies all the time of things that I thought were great.
Right. So even though you're doing like somewhat more corporate financial work,
and that became lower and lower. And that's the catch. It's like, so then you get good enough at something where it becomes, at one point it might've been 30% of what consumed my time, and it would get down to 5.
Wow.
But it would make more money.
Right.
Or it would make enough money but then it's like but money wasn't really the driver. And I'd also max it out, meaning I bled that rock to what that rock, what that rock could give me.
Yeah.
not only financially, but also what I could do with it. And then I would let that rock exist in its bled out stage until I would
kicked it off completely.
Yeah, and that's what I would do with most things, right? And some of it would be like that emotional thing that I'm chasing, and I'm probably chasing to this day.
Right.
It's like going, no, I want to feel, I want to be excited, I want to be interested, and it's like going, and some of these things may have had the conquest and the proving that it could be done that filled that, but none of it for what it was is what I was chasing.
That makes sense.
What it was is what I wanted.
Right.
It was more, I wanted to prove to you and show you that it could work and that it could be cool.
On a pursuit to freedom.
Yeah. And then the part of it's like and again, it's like but I was still, not part of any of these categories. It's like yeah, I worked in the action sport, but I wasn't actually, I wasn't considered it's like yeah, I could call up one of these companies. I could, of course, speak with anybody that I wanted to speak with. It's like I could get some project, but then they would think of me, which was always the frustrating. They would think you'd do product photography, right? And they wouldn't be able to process that I wasn't even a photographer. So they just assumed I was a photographer.
Right.
Like a company like Mastercraft just thought I was a graphic artist.
Fake it till you make it type.
Well, no, they just thought I was a graphic artist because I did all their graphics.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess you were just making it till you make it. It's not.
Yeah, it's
no
like and I was then I would say, well, it's like then I'd create an entire piece that could now enter them into the apparel business, right? Because that's really what I could do. It's like what do you want to do? Let me go do it for you or with you,
right?
Whatever you want. If it's in the creative direction, it's like I can do it. Mm-hmm. That's in essence, at least what my thought process,
which is a great thought process. Just like whatever challenge you got, whatever problem you have, I can solve it.
Yeah, let's go do it, and let's do it. Let's go do something fucking cool.
Yeah, and
right?
So how do you pivot off of that and be like, okay, now it's time to start Black Bear.
And that's the thing. I was doing pieces and parts, always. But
for other people though.
Yeah, it was always like this person needs a hat, or I do. Let's say an athlete wants to start a T-shirt brand. I would help put that into motion. And then, and also I would watch it as it couldn't be executed. Mm-hmm. So some of those things were happening, right? And because there's really no background, my background isn't a background of a creative director for a clothing company or a fashion designer. It's just not. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly not going to fabricate that today, right? I'm not going to be able to start making that resume that will be assumed by somebody else that makes you this. It's a fucking tornado. It's a complicated background. So it's like and I wanted for a while to be understood, right? And that fucking stage probably happened very short, really, because I realized that no one did in regards to they're used to seeing this. I'm not that. So if I want it, or I want to do that, so I got to then turn back to how I have to do it, which is, let's see how I can get that. Not like if I want to do a clothing brand, so I want to be a creative director for a clothing brand. I want to create and design clothing. It's like I just have to go figure out how I can do that, not prove to somebody else that I can do it and get them to hire me. Never fucking work, right? But I wanted to for a while. So there was a stage between those things and that, but it was a window that passed quickly because I was lucky to be aware that all the things that have happened in the past happened, that same way. I may have wanted it that way, but I was able to quickly see that, to be a graphic artist, it's like am I going to go to graphic art school and get trained in Photoshop and Illustrator and then go through this? As I looked at it, and I even went through and got able to be accepted to the Art Institute and pick whatever classes I want, because I had accomplished a number of things where, I go speak to the dean and they said, you pick what class you want. We'll just let you skip all the other stuff and you can take whatever class you want if you want to learn this stuff.
Wow. And then you weren't even a great student though. You're not.
No, I just went in there and I was like no. Then I start, looking at what they're teaching and I'm like fuck, dude, I've already way past where any of these wear any of these things that are being taught.
Just through experience. Just because you've been doing it.
And it's like, well, no, I was doing their boss's boss stuff already. Right. And then it's like, and then I came to that realization again. It's like, no, I don't really want to. I mean, I don't want to operate Photoshop. It's like, hand me an intern. I can get them to do it.
Yeah.
Hand me somebody that's specializing in, this tool.
This is like the Steve Jobs thing. Like people always like use that as a knock against Steve Jobs, where they're like, oh, well, he didn't even really, he wasn't designing. He doesn't know how to use design software. It's like, he's a visionary. He was just a brilliant visionary, and he had engineers that could program the things that he needed, but he just knew exactly how they should be. And so he was utilizing people that were way better than him at programming in order to create, this beautiful software, this beautiful product, because he knew the vision and they knew how to do it.
Well, also it's like most of these people, because it requires it, spend a lifetime and an amount of dedication to become good at this. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like going, and I commend that, but it's like going, I'm not even saying if I did dedicate all my energy towards learning how to do that well, that I'd even become as good as somebody. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But it's like going, but ultimately what I want to do is what I'm doing. I just want to create that.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to create that because that's one piece of this bigger thing. So then it's like going, so why do I want to learn about that?
If that's not even what you want to do.
It's like when I want that to help me make that, sure. And I want that to help me make that.
But if you can skip learning this part and just get someone to do it.
And then you see it's like when it's unlikely
right.
that by me learning that.
Right. Not only is it longer, it makes the likelihood of making the thing you actually want
it's way unlikely, way less likely.
Right.
And then even saying, well, it's like when, so now it's like when it's like when, yeah. So but then I still would have to remind myself of that through numerous stages, right? That's like going, fucking, it's like, it's still habit.
Right.
Or something that that this is how others have done it. So you do in some way turn to a proven path, but then I quickly get slapped or get aware through whatever, that it's like going, that's not going to work for you, motherfucker. Right. So it's like going, and then you can kind of even catch before you need that. Right. And you're like going, okay. So then the Black Bear brand thing, a couple things were on their horizon of passing, in my opinion. Right. And so I was shifting those out, kicking them. And then I was like going, okay. And I'd started to venture in and get a little bit of experience and knowledge in dead and dormant marks. And I had the fashion stuff was something that had been forever with me of interest, but then also something that I had dreamt of being a part of. And originally with Black Bear brand, the existence of the dormant mark, my experience with a variety of these old companies had a certain level of experience in trademark law, copyright law, and all these other things. Because when you're working in a graphic capacity that I was, it's like going, yeah, it was part of the game in regards to doing the level of artwork for companies like Mastercraft involving in certain creative projects with Red Bulls and Monster. But then the Mastercraft thing, it actually, there was an ownership of artwork that was a big part of that business and that graphic related service. So that at least exposed me to it, right? And then as soon as that was found, because originally I just wanted to pitch to a person that did own the mark to then become and create this thing that was my concept and idea with that mark in a reverence of this. And after finding at the stage it was at, I was like, okay. And then this became a quicker acknowledgement of what I was looking at and how I needed to do it. I was like, look, I already know this fucking scenario. This story has been written numerous times in the past. It's like, okay, I'm just going to make it. I'm just going to get it. It's like going, and then despite people saying how I couldn't get it, or despite the difficulty of getting it, or despite the process in which it takes an experience that's required to develop a clothing brand and then move into cut and sew and then to move into not only manufacturing, but distribution.
And this is the crazy thing is that at this point now you make everything. You make jackets, boots, socks, working on underwear, pants, like everything that you wear is effectively designed and created by you.
Yeah.
Which is
so fun.
Insane to think that You went from like, what was the first product you were making?
Well, I mean, it was t-shirts. I mean, which is something that, you know, I think probably most people.
Yeah. That's like the easiest entry point.
Yeah. And it's something that you can even, by far the easiest.
Yeah. I
mean, you can brand, you know, an item which you are making nothing, you're making no part of it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the easiest thing. And that's been done so many times prior to that in my other projects, right? So that was easy to kind of start that. That wasn't really where I was, like, I didn't stay in that stage for but a second.
Right. You wanted to go something bigger.
Yeah. And then I had to learn through collaborations. I mean, that's like my first first cut and sew item was through collaborations with Williams and Dickies. You know, that was my first kind of push into that. And it was simultaneously into footwear and simultaneously into jackets.
So everything was kind of happening all at once.
Always. But that's the story of everything in the past,
that's how you do everything,
right?
Yeah.
It's like going, it's just...
Let's just do all the things. Create the tornado.
And it's not even it's not a pre-planned, like, this is what I'm going to do.
It's just how your brain works.
Yeah. It's like going, you're just doing all these things at once.
Yeah, of course.
And after you've done it enough times, you realize that they're all going to end up having their own timeline, right? Yeah. They're going to evolve at their own pace anyhow.
And this is what I like about your story also, is like, how old were you when you started Blackberry? You're probably late 30s?
Nah, I guess that does age the brand, right? So I was 31.
Okay.
No, I wasn't. Fuck, Jesus Christ. No. Now I was 40.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I was 40.
I think that's amazing, because I think there's so many people, like, I feel this all the time. I'm 26, and I'm looking at like the things that I'm doing, and I'm like, ugh, I'm already over the hill. I'm already starting too late. I'm already behind the gun. You know what I mean? Like, I get the anxiety of, like, I'll look up on Google, like, oh, where was this comedian when they were 26? What were they doing? Where was this podcast where they were 26? What were they doing? And I try to compare myself to be like, am I on track? Am I losing time? Am I wasting time?
One favor that I'm going to give you right now is, like, stop comparing yourself at all. I mean, if you can do anything, stop.
It's just
fucking
tough.
Stop.
It's just
no,
tough.
I mean, but you can. It's like going to say it's tough is fucking cop out like a motherfucker. Come on. It's like going, just stop. It provides you no value. Mm-hmm. You will gain nothing from. I mean, it is instinctual. We all do it. You will have to consciously work to not. But you will be better off.
Is it helpful to keep up? To seeing
what the fuck do you mean that? I mean, think about it. It's like going, it's like going, then you need to kind of get your head straight, right? Because they're not driving your ambition, right? This arbitrary person or friend for that matter. Mm-hmm. But then if they're a friend, it's like going, you have some inkling when you think more deeply about all the things that brought them to what their stage was, in which you're now admiring and now comparing yourself to. And their entire story is a compound of sequences and adventures and shortfalls and things that ended up working well. Every one of those sequence of things are what put them in the stage in which they're at today. Mm-hmm. So their path, their speed or lack thereof will never be a good comparison to yours. Because your story is so only yours.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching two movies and like pausing them both at 1 hour and being like, let's compare the movies.
And that's like, something that almost all those do have, like there's a structure to them. And that's even an example where it wouldn't be possible, right?
Right.
And
it's like, how are you going to compare two movies at 1 hour? Like, you can compare characters, you can compare other things, but like just to compare it based off time seems stupid.
And they're all running off structure. Like,
right.
There's format to that bullshit.
Yeah, there's a formula.
So it's like when your life has none.
Yeah.
I mean, except if you look at both of you and maybe you both went to university. Mm-hmm. I mean, that might be one thing. It's like but our path to university and our experience at university it's fucking different. You can go to the same university, but they're still fucking different.
Yeah. Just the biology, the makeup, the family, the nurture, everything is different.
Oh, fuck.
But do you think it's helpful, like for example, if you're running a marathon, like if you want to beat your marathon time, it's helpful to have people running alongside you for short stretches that are keeping your pace and making sure that you're keeping up.
Yeah, but that's still not a comparison thing, right? It's like going, and I would say, it's like going, I would want to be around people that are better than me. Right? I would run around. It's like when, and they might be better at me something completely different. But if I was, it's like when I don't want to have somebody that I'm competing with. I would want somebody that's fucking better. They're just better, right? And there might be a time in which I surpass them, but my story will be so different and what I'm doing will be so different if I'm not comparing myself to them in that process. But it's like but I'd rather be chasing somebody that's just excellent in comparison to me not being excellent. And again, it's like but we can, all we have to do is look, and we're going to find people that at anything that we're doing that are excellent in comparison to us not being excellent.
Right.
Yeah,
and I guess you can always find that. And if you continue,
and you should seek it. I think, at least for me, it's like when it should be part of, it's like being around people that their story is interesting to us, like as individuals, when we're sitting across from somebody and their story is interesting, it's because they've experienced something we haven't. Fair?
True.
Right? So that drives us, motivates us, exposes us, now opens us up to a certain level of interest in these variety of things, right? That same thing comes from that person that is that comic that's of reverence, that you revere. But again, it's like isn't comedy very individual?
Yes.
Right? It's you.
Yeah, it's inherently extremely individual.
That's what I mean. So it's like and that's why it's even sillier to compare yourself. Because you don't want to ever lose the fact that your comedy is you.
Right.
And their comedy is them.
How do I do that better? Because it is easy to.
You gotta fucking be like you. Like no one's like, we're adults. Like to be reprimanded by anyone other than ourselves is kind of ridiculous. Like no one reprimands me. They don't. They haven't for a long time, right? So I haven't been reprimanded. There's nobody in my life that can reprimand me. So the only person that can keep me in check, honestly, is me, right? And the only one that can probably keep myself in check because of who I am, right? It's like I would push back to the in check from someone else.
Right.
But same with that, it's like there's no one but you being conscious of the fact that it's like I think you're pretty fortunate. You're around some people that are not only good at comedy and are good comics, but it's their application and kind of way in which they're playing the comic game.
Oh, for sure. For the space, I don't think there's a better group of people to be around.
I don't know that world. I guess
I'm telling you objectively.
And I get to sit in and just be a person that's not in it and really be happy to observe it and to be around it.
Yeah. But even that, I sometimes get insecure where I'm like, damn, I'm around some of the best guys in the game. That's putting more pressure on me where I'm like, all right, well now I have to rise up. I got to keep up with them. I got to keep competing. That's your pull. It's not that comparison. It's like to be pulled, but even look at them. It's like seeing how they uniquely excel. Because each one of those people are, and it's neat. I'm an overthinker. That's all I fucking do. I'm a heavy fucking thinker, right? So it's like when I look at, the Kid Super Show, right? Yeah.
So watching that, and you're watching, it's all very short, very fast, right? And even as you describe it, the preparation of it, it wasn't even kind of part of the jam. Like the preparation may have happened literally backstage. Just neat. Yes. Yeah, right? So, but then you're watching each one of these people, wildly unique. Each one of them. Wildly unique, right? And you're watching each one of them, and it's like knowing that their uniqueness and individualness, while they're all together in sequence, short, like minute. How fucking short was it?
Each person had like 3 to 5.
Yeah, and some people were much shorter than others.
Yeah.
Andrew had that awesome bit that's priceless now that I know the entire storyline behind it. But so each one of them wildly different. And how silly is it to compare yourself to any one of them individually? Right? Because each one of them is good because of them being individuals. Like Theo. Like, so unique.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason he's so connectable is because he's unique.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you put Andrew Schulz and him one after another. How wildly different, right? And for you to compare yourself to either of them is just silly. Because even watching you, because I've seen you live, I saw you in Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Wildly unique. You are not the same as Andrew. Mm-hmm. And you're not the same as any one of the other comics that, did that night. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't compare yourself, dude. Whatever you do. Call me up and say, Josh, I'm comparing myself. I'll fucking smack you around.
I need it.
I'll mentally smack you around. I'll talk you off the ledge.
Because I fall into that a lot.
But everybody does. That's the thing. It's like but
it's a constant practice to get out of it.
Oh, I mean, it's like I don't think that will ever just simply stop.
Yeah.
But you can pull yourself away from it and shut it down. And the more you do it, and the quicker you acknowledge that it's happening. And it's like because you're just not going to gain anything from it.
Yeah.
It's not helping you.
Yeah.
Just surround yourself with fucking
great people that are thinking differently and doing cool things.
And know that your thoughts being different than them, but feeding off them and allowing to gain something from the wild experiences that not only they've experienced up to that point, but you guys are a group in many ways. You get to watch them and see what they're experiencing and the return on their experiences, and while simultaneously having your experiences. And I'm sure they're feeding off you.
Yeah.
So it's
completely mutual, and it's by osmosis, just by proximity. You're absorbing a different way to think about things and a different way to perceive the world, and it's making the product that you're creating better just by proximity.
Yeah, and you guys are in a wildly creative space, and you get to surround yourself, and it's like, again, last night, that creative space itself, but also the creative people that were, eating dinner with us. Mm-hmm. That we spent, a few hours up to dinner with. It's like the more you spend, and now that your circle is basically, this patchwork of creative people, wildly different even fields, mm-hmm. right? And you had Kid Super, and again, like the comedy piece. It's neat that he did it first, because he will be the first one. People will do it again,
mm-hmm.
right?
I think people already have,
right?
Yeah.
So, but in the way in which he did it, and the story that leads up to how he did it, and how he's connected with each one of these comics, it would be neat for more people to hear that.
Yeah,
is the way I look at it. So, and that's the part that it's like it's neater than people know. Yeah, that's the part that, and you guys will have your time in which you will tell that story, right? But I felt lucky, because even coming to New York, it's like it's a big city for me, mm-hmm. right? Like, I can do a couple days here. But I'm good.
Yeah.
3 days, I'm good, man.
You're a woods guy. Just get out of the sticks.
But it's like no, I need to move. It's like I'm not, I can be at my house for 2 weeks.
Oh, really? And then you got to go somewhere?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah. I mean, and it's like I need that. It's like I've got nothing. I mean, my business holds me down to being more grounded than I would if I was in a position within the business where I could do this more. But that's kind of what one of my dreams is, and we would talk like pre-pandemic, and my dream was to be moving around and kind of, I'd accomplished most everything of what my objective and what I foresaw as my dream in that moment, at that stage, right? It's like on the magazines and being able to storytell, and then start to the first few steps of being able to bring people into reality of what is behind what I'm creating and designing, because that's the neat part at this stage, because it's so small, and small in the sense that there's no one making any decisions except me, for
Right.
better or worse.
Right.
Like, if it's fucked up, it's my fault.
Yeah.
Right.
And the growth might be slower for that.
Yeah. And or if it's good, I get to, hold, a good amount of credit.
Yeah.
Not that there isn't, like, no, I don't do anything on my own. It's like and I don't want it to ever be something that is but it's like but no one else works for Blackbird brand. It's all like part of the chess play or part of the chessboard.
Yeah.
No, I can't take pictures and shoot video, and I've been so fortunate to have these amazing people that love the process or love the product or love the creative kind of experience and adventure that is the kind of process.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's like, I just want to design shit. I just
So
want to
what is
make
the dream
shit.
now? What is the next dream?
Oh, it's kind of a secret.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But it's there.
Oh, yeah. But I never am not dreaming. Like,
Right.
my dreams are fucking, that's the thing. It's like,
Okay, I just want to make sure you do have one.
oh yeah, I mean, I've got too many, and it's like putting them in like playing chess with the dreams. And I've used the analogy of chess so much. It's like, no, it's like I'm positioning those dreams because I got a handful of them happening simultaneous.
Yeah.
They're all intertwined because everything is, but I have dreams that are kind of coming to life. I mean, even, meeting some of the people I've met now while in New York, and some of the things that, as we're sitting outside, like just sitting there, it's like and I had an idea that I just needed to, right? That's why I was here when I was here. Not that I was already on the way because I'm punctual, but it's like and then I'm like it's like no, I'll sit there. It's
Yeah.
like, it's a good idea. And then, the idea that, we'll see if it comes to fruition. But that was kind of the idea that sparked when I was sitting there. Mm-hmm. And then it already went through a couple stages of exploration during the whatever hour in which was preliminary to this. Right. But that happened from a step off from lunch yesterday. And then not only did our evening after we left here last night, but like sitting in that space, it shook me up. And I mean this in a good way. It's like I needed to see that.
Yeah.
Like I needed to meet him. Both
You've got new inputs.
Yeah. And it's like I get to see some things. It's like no, it's like I didn't know a lot. Right. I mean, and I wasn't under the preconception that I know a lot, because I know, and I'm reminded every day on how little I know. Mm-hmm. I am. I'm very, very conscious of it. It's like but like I got more awareness of so many things I didn't know last night.
Yeah.
Which was awesome for me. But it shakes me up, and I know it does.
But you were open to the exposure.
Oh, no, I need it. And it's like, and I know it. When it's happening, I can even acknowledge it. And I can know that it's, because it wasn't uncomfortable, but there was discomfort in
moments, yeah.
in me shaking.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And it's like, no, and I loved it. And I actually even loved it more. And that's probably why I slept like shit last night. Because I was like, fuck me.
You were
I
firing.
was spinning. I had a fucking tornado in my head.
That's great.
Yeah. And then I woke up, and the only thing that could get me kind of settled is go to the gym.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's the best feeling. I love that feeling. Like, that's why I really like, my favorite thing to do every night is like, my wife and I will watch a show for like 5 minutes. She falls asleep immediately. I'll play FIFA. And literally, I'll just like play the soccer game, FIFA.
Oh, it's the one that you guys play on, that you and
Yeah,
Andrew,
on stream. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll play FIFA and then turn the music all the way down, put my headphones in, and then just listen to YouTube videos of just like creators, YouTube algorithm hacks, a podcast with like a philosopher, something to just inject my brain with a new idea to then make me think differently. And I can
you do that before you sleep.
Right before I sleep. Because that's when I'm like, my brain, I feel like, is the most fluid.
So you're a night guy. So if you put, so it's like going, and that's where it was funny, because I was like going, fuck, dude, I'd hope we do this discussion in the morning, because I'm the opposite.
Oh, really? So I caught you at your worst time.
No, I mean, we'll see. I mean, in fact, it is what it is, right? It's like going, that's probably why I should have done it at night.
Yeah.
Because it is where I'm least on.
I'm sharpest in the morning, but I'm the most free in the evening. My brain is not inhibited with the restrictions about like all the things that I need to do and with the anxiety of all the things that I should be doing. But when it's 12 o'clock at night, there's really nothing else to do other than think and be free to be creative.
And I shut down at night.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm not like
so it's like and that's the thing, like even when I got home to the apartment last night, it's like going, no, I get it. It's like going, all right, I can lay there and stare at the ceiling for an hour. Right. And that's what I do. It's like because I didn't have that
release, that
deflation time.
Yeah, exactly.
That I almost need, where it's like, oh no, I do brainless shit for an hour at night. Brainless. Like, yeah, it's like, that's why I've seen every fucking Netflix movie I've seen. It's like, it's my shutdown time. And I'm usually on my computer simultaneous, so I need to, like, it doesn't happen quickly. I know that I'm still, like, I'll have the computer and fucking cell phone and a movie on. Yeah. And that's my fucking decompression.
Yeah, of course.
It's like and I have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
So it's like all those things like happen.
That makes sense. But yeah, that to me is how I know that I injected my brain with something good. When it takes me a little bit longer to go to sleep because I'm just spinning.
That's the problem I would foresee for myself.
Yeah, but it makes me really excited to go to sleep because then in the morning I get to do it. So it's almost like some Santa Claus shit. I was the kid that, like, if Santa was coming.
Do you dream at night?
Yeah. Yeah,
Always.
I dream. 50-50. I dream a lot though. Yeah.
It's healthy. I don't know if what a psychologist says, but it's like going, yeah, I think dreaming for me is healthy. But I only dream. I dream every night.
Really?
Yeah. And I can't not all types.
Good, bad, weird, meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it has a reflection. There is reflection.
If you're anxious, you have a dream about your teeth falling out, shit like that.
No, I don't. It's like when I've had dreams of like ever falling from an infinite cliff and shit, but not for many years, but I'd had them all the time.
Do you ever have productive dreams where you think of things and you come up with ideas?
Well, it's like when I will wake up in the morning and it's like when I've been working so hard to get sleep, but it's like when I'm trying to make sure I can do both. Like I used to pop out of bed at 4 a.m. It was a pop up and I would be able to walk straight into anything. Like there was no, and then I mean, during the summer, I walk down to the lake and dive into the lake and swim as far as I can out. And that's my ritual in the morning. And I contemplate going in. I contemplate leaving my house every day. I contemplate before I do my first dive into this cold lake every morning. And I know that I'm contemplating it and I'm often putting an excuse to avoid it. But I force myself through that first step. Every morning for 6 months. I do that for at least 6 months a year. Rain or shine, cold or not.
Wow.
But that contemplation happens 90% of the time. And I notice it. Like I'm conscious of these things.
Right. It never goes away.
It doesn't. But it's like but I don't let it even pause me.
Does it ever stop you? Has it ever stopped you? It's never stopped you.
I didn't let it though. It's like it's one of those things. It's like when I'm in control because I'm taking control, right? It's not like I'm in control naturally. Like,
right.
It's like
you're naturally out of control.
Yeah.
And
I'm forcing control. It's like and knowing that you can force that control
through practice.
Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, that contemplation will always exist as I see it within that situation. So the only way in which that contemplation is managed is in this way.
What is that internal dialogue to overcome the contemplation?
That's where it goes into that thing. It's like, no, I will never stop thinking. The only time I stop thinking is when I'm sleeping.
And even when you're sleeping, you're still dreaming.
I'm still dreaming. So it's a fucking messy place in my head.
Yeah.
It's messy.
So that contemplation, how do you overcome it? Like, I feel that I wake up in the morning and I'm nice and warm and cozy and I don't feel like getting up.
Yeah, but then that's the kind of thing. Like as soon as I have that feeling, I get up. Like it's like one of those things where it's like if I think I shouldn't like go do something, it's like the first thing I do is stop thinking and move now. I look at it not in that comfort thing. I almost appreciate more that I've gotten up because I got up despite wanting to not. I think that's more in which I would look at it. It's like I almost enjoy that dive into the water and then after coming back from swimming because I didn't want to and I still did it. So there's like a greater appreciation or love, or like I feel better about that I've done it.
Because there was a overcoming.
Yeah, because there was something that I did despite maybe contemplating not, or attempting to find an excuse, you know, all these things. And despite that, I still did it.
Right.
And then there's a triumphant aspect, probably.
Yeah, if there's no internal conflict, then the triumph isn't as triumphant.
Or then I just want to push it.
Yeah.
I want to seek that. I want to find that thing.
And once you get comfortable in one thing, like for example, for me, going to the gym is not a triumphant thing. Pretty much every day I wake up and I just do it because, like, in the way that I would breathe, or like in the way I would go to the, you know,
How
shower.
early do you go?
Sorry?
Do you go in the,
what hour? Early? Yeah, I go early, first thing. Like the second I wake up, ideally I'm walking into the gym.
Yeah, I mean,
but that's at a time that was very difficult for me. Like in the last like 2 years, 2 years ago, I would not have been that person, but now it's become second nature. So now I'm like, I should seek more discomfort. I should seek more things that
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, and it
can be little things, like even just waking up at the right time. Like, you know, some days I'll wake up at 8, some days I'll wake up at 9:30, and then some days I wake up at 7, and I'm like, maybe I should just pick a time, and every day at 8, I'm up. Every day at 7, I'm up. Whatever that is.
Yeah, I would go harder in your discomfort personally.
Like what?
I don't know. Well, you do a lot of things that would be very uncomfortable for most. I think going on stage in front of an audience would
it's uncomfortable for me many times.
Yeah, well, and that's a big one. And I bet there's confidence that's built over repeatedly doing so.
Right.
That you still may contemplate it. Still may be a lot of anxiousness before you did it, but not to level that I would have.
Right.
I would be hyper anxious, dude. I'd be fucking fun.
Right. Well, this is like lifting 225. Like if you're benching 225, the first time it's very hard, but once you've been lifting for a couple years,
and you're successful at it, and you're good, and you've got a competence that's beyond competence, right? And that came from doing it repeatedly, probably, and coupled with talent.
Yeah.
But are there things associated with comedy that give you a similar discomfort to that discomfort you had walking on stage? When did you become a comic? When did you walk on stage for the first time?
I was 18 and a half.
And were you in Florida at that time?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were in Florida, and at what type of comedy show or comedy establishment was it?
Just an open mic at Austin's coffee shop in Winter Park, Florida.
It was a coffee shop that had like comics.
Yeah.
And was it like, were there other people your age? Was it of all ages?
All ages. I mean, everyone was, actually, no, it was kind of younger, but everyone was like 22, 23, which at that time I was like, these people are old.
Yeah. And where in Florida again?
This is in like Orlando, a little bit outside of Orlando.
Okay.
Winter Park.
So I know that place.
Yeah. It's a cool spot.
Yeah. And because there's a lot of boat related stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of lakes.
Yeah. Lots of lakes. So the amount of, when did you do a first club? Like, let's say a comedy club.
Probably like 6 months after that.
It's fucking impressive. That's fucking neat. So it was 6 months that walked you into a club, and you were still underage, so you weren't 21. Could you? Were any of these like of age places, or
they were all were. So I kind of had to like sneak around, or like people would know, and then they just wouldn't ask because. So there'd be a bunch of bars. So like if there was a bar show, the bouncer would show, the show would start at 8. The bouncer would get there at 7. So I would get there at 6:30 because in the daytime, there's never a bouncer. Yeah, exactly. So I would just hang out there for like, and I wouldn't even get up till 9:30 or 10. So I would just hang out there for 3.5 hours.
Fucking just like, dedication is awesome.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome.
But I remember the first couple of times going there and being like, dude, the owner, this guy, Ken Miller, was like, dude, I'd love to put you up, but bro, you're 18. You can't go up. The bouncer's right here. It's against the law. And then he kind of was the one that was like, come by early. He won't be here. So I snuck in. Yeah, it was fun. But to that end, a lot of the places where I was underage.
Was that harder than the coffee shop?
Easier. Yeah.
So you'd broken yourself in a bit at that coffee shop or the pre-bar stuff where you got some of your initial like hardcore, like imagine it would be a pretty hardcore break-in. Right?
Yeah.
I imagine this is a non-comic that doesn't get on stage for shit.
Yeah.
Right? But I imagine that it would be a pretty severe break-in.
It's tricky. It's more difficult to do well at like a coffee shop. But the stakes are in a way for me, at my perspective, were lower Because, you know, if I bomb at a coffee shop, there's 25 people there, 30 people there. You know, there's a coffee machine going. No one's really, you know, some people are paying attention, some people aren't. So if you bomb, you kind of just like shirk off and leave and everything's fine. But you bomb at a comedy club, it's harder to bomb there because the people that are there really want to see comedy and they're there for the show and they got a babysitter and they drove 25 minutes and they are ready to laugh and they got a 2-drink minimum so everyone feels good. But if you bomb there, it feels way worse because there's 300 people in the room and you walk away and you're like, dang.
And you want to impress, and
you want to impress the owner, the booker, the people that work there, the wait staff, other comics, of course.
I could imagine all of that.
So stakes are higher, but it is easier.
So, like those moments, but I bet your scale kept on growing too, right? So the more experience you got, and then coupled with, you know, the audiences became greater, more impressive.
Yeah, of
the
course.
Places in which you went were greater and more impressive.
Yeah, I mean, especially once I linked up with Schulz. I mean, I went from doing open mics to being in a theater in Toronto within like 3 months.
Oh, that's so neat.
And
then, so how long was that before you were in Seattle?
The time that we were there, that you were there.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably was like 6 years plus like a COVID year. Okay,
so that 6 years is a long time. I mean, in regards to any profession, it's at least there's time in it. Not long. I guess long is a bit generous, term. But it's like but it's still 6 years. You're in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are a comic
for
right?
sure.
You are, and especially in the circle in which you're, you know, doing comedy is a legit.
I'd like to think so. The imposter syndrome still slips in for sure. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, as an outsider, it's definitely, I mean, because I remember the first time that I saw Schulz. Yeah.
Wait, where was it?
It was during his COVID like bits.
Oh yeah.
I saw him the same, you know, up when the world began to see him more. I was just among that.
Yeah.
Right. But it happened all very quickly.
Yeah, of course.
Like I think he just started to get that level of exposure. And we connected almost right away.
Yeah.
So
I remember that.
There was very little time from when he started, because he made me happy.
Yeah.
He just made me happy.
Very simple.
Fucking as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all I need. I mean, that's probably all most of us need. It's like, it made me happy. Right. So, and then, you know, that instantly, I mean, because that was because of COVID, he was just doing it on his own.
Yeah, we were just locked in the studio. We had nothing to do.
Yeah.
Couldn't do any stand-up, nothing. And I didn't really do any like the stand-up in the park shows or like Zoom stand-up shows. I wasn't really interested. So
and Flagrant didn't really...
We were still doing the pod regularly, but we were doing these rants and me and Schulz just kind of like locked in and a couple other guys and just like, you know, we're helping create this, you know, these pieces of viral content. It was insane. Every week.
It was viral. I mean,
yeah, it was crazy. I don't really ever look back on it and like reflect on like what that was, but it certainly was a moment.
Extremely impactful. I think it was impactful because it was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was needed. I think that there needed to be some honesty, but done in a way in which is humorous.
Yeah, which is the best way. I always think. I mean, that's the best way to learn something.
Well, it couldn't be any better. It's like and that's when, you know, there was all these threatenings and everything was feeling threatened.
Yeah.
But there was a defiance to that in what you guys were doing.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, fuck. I was telling everybody, you better fucking look at this. I was like, anybody that would listen to me, I was like,
this is the worst.
Look at it.
Yeah.
He's saying what I mean. Right? Seriously. I was like going,
he got it dialed in.
Yeah.
We got to go back to Seattle. That's the goal. When we go back, you got to come back to the show.
Yeah. Well, we got to do something with the Lincoln and like, I got to get, I gotta show you what a real bike is.
Yeah, you saw my bike yesterday to start talking shit about me.
No, I didn't. I didn't talk any shit. I mean,
it can't all be you, dude. Come on, I'm on my way. I'm
like
working on it.
I thought your bike was fun. I just want you to see what a real bike looks like.
Perfect. Let's do it. Can I ride it?
There'll be a moment before that.
Okay, deal. Well, I'm excited, man. I really appreciate you coming and chatting and doing this.
My pleasure.
This is really fun. I'm gonna stop comparing myself to other people.
I mean, it's a pleasure to be here. I have a lot of fun, and it's.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm so happy that I was able to do it.
Let's do it again.